Thanks very much. My name's Noel. I'm an alcoholic, and almost enough caffeine in my system to be able to function, but not quite. So slightly subpar. It's quite early in the morning for me. Thanks, Mary, for asking me to be of service. Thanks to everybody who does service in this meeting. And that includes everybody who's here, who's listening and talking, as well as all the people who keep the room safe, facilitate the meeting. I'm sort of very grateful to know you, all of you, and I'm really grateful to be here. Um, I I drank for a long time. I come from a highly dysfunctional family. Um, I don't think people need to come from a dysfunctional family necessarily to have issues around sort of alcohol misuse or substance misuse. Society will sort of encourage you to do that anyway. So that's not necessarily family of origin, but with me, there's definitely family of origin stuff going on. And so just I'm going to use some words that might be upsetting to people. So just be aware of that and have a thought about being kind and compassionate to yourself and looking after yourself. And if you have feelings, that's okay. You're in a safe place and breathe. As Mary said at the beginning, I think breathing has been the thing that it's such a simple thing to breathe. I got taught it a long time ago. I used to have very serious panic attacks. Not that any panic attack isn't serious, but there's my dramatic self coming out. I had the worst panic attacks in the world. I had panic attacks, and panic attacks are really unpleasant things. And I would go to A&E, which is what we call ER, and they would put little pads on me to reassure me that I wasn't going to have a heart attack and I wasn't going to die. And I would do that regularly as my coping mechanism. And one of the nurses one day came into the cubicle I was in where I was on these pads, heart machine thing. And she said, "Do you know what your problem is, Noel?" And I was just about to give her the long list of stuff. And she stopped me and she said, "You don't know how to breathe." I was like, "What do you mean?" Um, and she said, "I'm going to teach you to breathe." And so I was there, imagine on a gurney with wires stuck on me. And she said, "Right, I want you to breathe in through your nose and count it. 2, 3, 4. And I want you to breathe out through your nose and count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's what I need to do. Go in and out through your nose. And I want you to think about trying to feel that feeling as it comes in and out through your nose. It's like, she's a nutter. What is she talking about? But I did it because I was strapped to a gurney. What else was I going to do, right? Um, and um, and I did that. And she said, "I want you to do that every day for a few minutes. That's all." And I said, "Okay, all right." So I would do anything really. And I have to say that simple breathing technique has transformed my life. It's hugely important to me. And later on, I heard that it's called meditation. Like, yeah, right, okay. And I heard that it's called mindful meditation. Okay, well, I just thought it was breathing. And apparently it is. It's just breathing. But people discovered a long time ago that we stopped using our noses to breathe, and that was a really dumb idea. And so in the past, people used to breathe through their nose all the time. People like Buddha and stuff like that. And they and breathing through our noses is a really good thing to do. And for me, it has been transformative in my life and stopped me sort of ending up in PR on a regular basis and on medication for extreme anxiety and beta blockers and things like that. Made it possible for me to eventually come into these rooms. Because when I was in that state, I wouldn't have been able to be around people like yourself, even though you're all gorgeous. It wasn't possible. I couldn't be around people. I was just too terrified. So how did I get to that point? I grew up in, quite extreme violence. I come from a Irish immigrant family. My parents moved to England in the 50s, 60s, that sort of time. And it was during a time when, in the 70s and 80s, the Troubles in Ireland, as they were called, kicked off quite seriously. Thankfully, it was the final throw of that. And my family of origin were involved in that, in the armed struggle. Not necessarily my mum and dad necessarily, but certainly my grandfather was very directly involved he was based in Dublin. He was the brigade commander in the IRA, and he was a thoroughly unpleasant person. Really one of the most unpleasant people I've ever met in the whole of my life. And thankfully, I didn't meet him very often. I had a few what I call flashbulb memories. These are sort of trauma memories, where you can only remember things as though it's a bit like you remember those old 1950s films with a camera where the bulb goes and everything freezes in black and white. Sometimes your memory does this around very traumatic events, and you can only remember them as a frozen black and white image and stuff like that. They're called flashbulb memories, and I only have a few flashbulb memories of him. Thankfully, not very many other memories of him, as he was a disaster, an absolute disaster. And so were his sons, who were my uncles, and that was my mum's father and brothers. So you can imagine sort of what my mum was like. And as often happened, she married a guy, my father, who her upbringing had patterned her to think was a suitable partner. And he wasn't a suitable partner by any stretch of the imagination. And he was very much like her father and her brothers. And later on, my mum, she was an interesting woman. She sort of later on learnt that that was a mistake, and she was caught up in a repetition, and she needed to change it. And she did something that was very interesting for somebody of her generation and her culture, Irish Catholic, particularly Irish Catholic terrorist culture. She stepped out of that, and she moved out and divorced my father at a time when he still had to get permission from the Pope, and he didn't give it. So the whole of the Catholic Church were very upset with her, apparently, and certainly her family of origin were very sort of distraught about this and worried, particularly because of the criminality that they'd been involved in. And so there were sort of worries and concerns about her. And she married my stepfather, Alf, who was a lovely guy. And he was English, and very calm and very kind. And I was very grateful that he came into my life in the second half of my life. And he taught me a lot about how to be calm and kind. And he didn't drink at all. He was a strange guy for me as a kid. I'd watch him drinking. He used to get these quarter cans of alcohol, of beer. So these days, I think you get giant cans of everything, but he used to have a quarter can, and it was of a beer called Mackerson, which is similar to Guinness. And he would pour that out, and he would spend the whole evening enjoying drinking that quarter can. And I remember even as a child just thinking, you're weird. You're absolutely fucking weird. What on earth are you doing? And I would be sort of watching him going, but Jeff, hurry up and drink, you idiot. What's wrong with you? And even then, it's like, wow, just didn't get it. I didn't get it. But for me, and I discovered alcohol. My first memory of drinking is 12, which is a disaster. Drinking underage is an absolute disaster. There's a lot of talk about the alcoholic gene and stuff like that. It's true, but it's only 50% of the game. The other 50% is environment and what we do. And the biggest thing that will activate alcoholism is alcohol. That's it, particularly if one drinks young. The medical guidance in the UK is don't drink anything at all before the age of 16 because of the neurological impact. But I would guess now, with our current state of research, it would be better to push that forward into your early 20s, given the sort of neurological development that's taking place. And just simply the fact that I drank at that age, whether or not I'd had the alcoholic gene, which I do think I've got, because my father clearly was an alcoholic, and it's very much passed on from father to son. Very definitely, there's a lot of research evidence for that. But the fact of drinking at that age is sort of pretty deterministic of you're going to have alcohol use problems. I had a lot of PTSD, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of self-hatred, and here's one of the trigger words, a lot of suicidal thinking and parasuicidal behavior in terms of using. You know, that's triggering you. I'm really sorry. There's lots of help. You're in the right place. You've got lots of phone numbers. Use them. The thing, it was in my recovery, actually, that I had the strongest urge to kill myself, not during my drinking. It was a couple of years into my recovery, and I was on a train, in a train station, and I had a really strong urge to throw myself under the train that was coming into the platform. And without thought, my hand reached into my pocket and picked up my phone. I started dialing numbers from my 12-step groups without thinking. Because early on in my recovery, I'd been taught this trick about getting lots of phone numbers and practicing phone calls on a daily basis till it became completely automatic. And I just remember repeatedly phoning people in the first few years of my recovery, just feeling like a complete dick. Oh, I'm just calling, I've just got nothing to talk about. Sorry, just I've been told that I have to do this. And actually, it saved my life because on that day, I was on the platform. I was definitely going under that train. I have no idea why I was triggered into wanting to kill myself. Absolutely none. And my hand went into my pocket. I dialed through my numbers. Eventually, I got somebody from Al-Anon, actually, which is one of the fellowships I go to. And she just said, "Oh, are you going to go under the train?" It's what you do in recovery, isn't it? You just ask these really strange, direct questions. Oh, are you actually going to kill yourself or not? And I said, no, I think I'm not. And she said, okay, I'm just going to pop out of the office and I'll call you back in 2 minutes. And she did. And I didn't go under the train. And it is because of that call. That's it. And that just distracted me long enough not to hurt myself. And I think it's a good technique as well for the urges to use and stuff like that, because the urges to use tend to be time limited, like these urges to kill ourselves. They pass, and having something that I can distract myself with has been really helpful in my life. Just practical stuff, and it's that sort of behavioral shift, I guess, that sort of stimulus response. My response previously was to use from any stimulus, and I've just put new responses in place, behavioral responses, and turn up to meetings, talk to people, pick up the phone, go for a walk, etc., etc. There's a whole bunch of them, and hang around meetings long enough and people give you loads of really good ideas of different behavioral responses to the stimuluses. So I drank from 12 till my 40s, early 40s, 30 years basically. And there's nothing really interesting to say about it. I use drugs as well, nothing particularly interesting to say about that. It just progressively got worse. It's not necessary for that to happen, I don't think, to decide to get recovery. sort of simply understanding the risks involved in this stuff. And it's I think of it like this: there's been a lot of stuff in the news about court cases and levels of evidence and stuff like that. And you've got civil trials and criminal trials, and in criminal trials you have to do this beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest level of evidence. And I was living my life as I needed evidence at that level that I was fucked from using. I don't need that evidence. On balance of probabilities, which is the civil trial approach, on balance of probabilities, I come from a culture that was absolutely destroyed by drink. I had a father who was absolutely destroyed by it. I had a mother who didn't drink, but came from a family that was absolutely destroyed by this stuff. It goes back in generations. They grew up in extraordinarily traumatic environment where the use of alcohol in a dysfunctional way was absolutely normal. So on balance of probabilities, I'm going to have a problem with using. And I don't even need to use to know that. I don't need the experience that I acquired through 30 years of misuse of alcohol and drugs to know that on balance of probabilities, I'm fucked around this stuff. You know? And so there is no need to go and get loads of evidence. And the balance has shifted, particularly in terms of alcohol as well. So recently, the World Health Organization updated its guidelines on alcohol to suggest that there is no safe level of alcohol use, and there isn't. My country of origin, Ireland, is the first country in the world. This is a country that's associated with a drink called Guinness. My country of origin next year is going to relabel alcohol products to tell people how dangerous they are. And it's going to put labels on alcohol products similar to the labels that are going on tobacco products around the world. Because alcohol is a class 1 carcinogen. Class 1, as dangerous as smoking cigarettes. Canada's already reduced the amount of, it's changed its guidelines to 0. There is no safe level of alcohol use. The rest of the world will follow inevitably. There's a growing trend towards sober lifestyle, which has nothing to do with alcoholism, and it's wonderful to see. It's extraordinary to see. In the UK, there's been a 20% drop in the number of kids starting to drink since 2015. Fucking awesome. Well done, kids. Young people, I'm so impressed by young people these days, really turning towards having a healthy life, valuing themselves as human beings, valuing the planet, valuing each other, engaging in community and society, changing the world, making it a better place. Fucking awesome. Absolutely awesome to see. It's really beautiful. I just think that I don't regret anything, but it would have been nice to know this stuff. It would have been nice to know, you know? So I don't really think of recovery as something that happened at some point. I mean, I think I've often heard this in AA meetings that I came into AA and suddenly boom, everything changed. I'm lucky. I haven't drunk since I started 12-step recovery 15 and a half years ago. I'm very grateful. I'm very lucky for that. But it isn't that my life isn't like that. There isn't this sort of point. So I did a lot of stuff to get to the point where I could actually sit in groups of people because I was fucked. And my family of origin were fucked, and that's the truth. And I carry comorbidities, and I had trauma responses, I had anxiety, I had depression, I had self-hatred, I wanted to hurt myself, I wanted to kill myself, etc., etc. And I've done a lot of stuff to get to the point where I could begin to re-socialize, and that's how I think about joining 12-step recovery, begin to re-socialize myself so that I'm more pro-social, I'm more engaged with people, and I'm just less terrified of people, to be honest. I was just so afraid all the time of everything. What's that film? Terrified all the time of everything. That'll be the next film by some Marvel thing or something. That would be a good film to see, because that's the story of my life. I had to do a lot of work, and I think people do have to do a lot of work, and I don't believe in this sort of magical transformation stuff. For me, change has taken place over time, and it's been a consistent effort on my part. And sometimes there have been significant shifts, and I would say coming into 12-step recovery and not drinking and getting that concept was really helpful for me. It was a really significant shift. But that's for me, and I know the evidence, and just being able to stop for any amount of time is a good idea. If you start again, that's fine. It's no big deal. So I also believe very strongly in sort of harm reduction as an approach. And I drank, if I hadn't been drinking without the treatment for my PTSD, I probably would have killed myself. It is probably the thing that kept me alive, right? And so I was working on reducing the harm and working slowly to improve my life and deal with the issues that and learn the tools and resources that I needed to be able to manage stuff. And that took a long time. And if you're in that place now, well done for giving it a shot. It's like, we call it, in my profession, and I've got various health and social care professional backgrounds, help seeking behavior. If there's one tool, I think, that has really helped my life, has improved my life and improved the condition I'm in, is learning to seek help. It doesn't mean I always get what I need, but I keep at it. I keep trying, keep coming back and asking for help. And if something isn't working, trying something new, trying something different. My experience is that by maintaining that approach, I've gradually over time found the help that works for me. And it was so shit before. It really was. And I'm so grateful that it's not. It's not really. Oh, it's need to breathe through that a little bit, excuse me. So yes, very grateful. So what did I do? So that's where I come from. Not everybody needs to come from that to have. I think I've made the point that alcohol itself is just dangerous. It will activate responses, and there are various things like that. And there's lots of really interesting stuff, particularly research in the US from various federal agencies, but the one that in particular that deals with drug and alcohol misuse, NIH, I think it's called, has produced some fantastic research on the neuroscience of addiction. Absolute extraordinary breakthroughs. And understanding that stuff is gold, I think, has been gold for me. And the US was the first country that really find addiction as a neurological disorder, and really impressive step forward in understanding what's going on. So the research now that's taking place is extraordinary. All of that sort of informs my approach to recovery, not the whole field of neuroscience. I'm not. That's a stupid statement. What informs my approach to recovery, and I've been secular since the day I walked into recovery, 12-step recovery, to the point where I went to a Minnesota model. I don't know if people know what that means, but it's this sort of weird mixture of 12-step God and out of date sort of psychoanalytic concepts, sort of really bizarre thing. and so it was a Minnesota model treatment center that had funding issues and wanted to make sure I filled in forms. They forced you to do steps 1, 2, and 3 based upon their understanding of things. And I remember one of the very angry counsellors, he was really angry. Not a good role model at all. If I can give you some advice, stay away from the angry people. they, they haven't got it yet. They really haven't. Um, so he put Alcoholics Anonymous book in front of me under the We Agnostics chapter and said, "You're going to have a problem with this program. Read that." And I read it. I just thought, this is fucking Mickey Mouse. Really, seriously. But they required me to write something about a higher power, and I wrote about a children's television character in the UK called Bagpuss, which is a cat for all the cat ladies amongst us. Bagpuss is a lovely, sleepy cat who was one of the early pioneers of recycling. And really was. I mean, it was a wonderful children's program that was advocating, like the Wombles. I don't know if you've seen the Wombles as well. The Wombles of Wimbledon are two wonderful children's sort of TV stop animation, that sort of early days of animation characters that encouraged kids to be more engaged with recycling and reusing and all that sort of stuff. So Bagpuss was wonderful. I liked Bagpuss because he slept a lot, and I liked sleeping. I still do. And so I wrote about Bagpuss as my higher power, which made Mr. Angry very angry. Okay, well, there you go. And I passed the course and I got out and I came to AA, and that's really what I learned was go to. And I chose AA simply because there were a lot more meetings. There were various options, and I think there are even more options now. But there's Life Ring, there's Buddhist recovery, there's Women in Recovery, there's SMART. I don't know if you know about SMART, which is a really good evidence-based recovery model. The reason I chose AA is because I would live in London and there were a lot of AA meetings, so it was easier for me, that's all. I looked at the SMART meetings and there was only 4 in London at the time, but at that point, when I came into the rooms, there was 800 AA meetings that I could choose from. So it was more convenient, and there are a lot where I live. And on my doorstep, as it were, so it was just easier. And I'm grateful I made that choice, and I made my recovery easy from the beginning. I made it as easy as possible, not as difficult as possible. And I came in, I remember people giving me long lists of things you have to do in the morning. You have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you have to pray, and then you have to meditate, and then you have to write a gratitude list, and then you have to do this and do that. And like, the fuck, man, there ain't enough hours in the day to do all that shit. There really isn't. I mean, it's like my recovery is very easygoing mostly. I up the ante when I need extra help, but most of the time it's pretty easygoing, and I wouldn't be able to sustain it if it wasn't. That's just the way I am. I have to sort of slowly over time engineer my life to work better for me. And that's the way it works. That's how my recovery works. And I have to build up habits, a bit like brushing my teeth. I get up, I brush my teeth, get on with my day. And I've built my recovery like that over the years, so that my life now reflects that. And because I live in the real world rather than some fantasy world of recovery, some fantasy island, it doesn't involve a lot of strange behaviors and attitudes that would make me seem really odd to the rest of the world. I live in a secular country. If you go around the UK talking about God, people are going to look at you like you're a nutter. And that's the truth. And maybe it's different in America, but it isn't the case in the UK. And I've always been more concerned with being able to live life not live in some strange altered reality. I lived in an altered reality when I was using inside my head, and it was really unpleasant. It was really thoroughly unpleasant. And also, I'm educated enough about the issues to understand that what's going to save my arse is having really good social connections, having lots of really good people around me, particularly people who are different to me. There's a term called neurodiversity. You might want to check it out. It's a bit like this. The way I think about it is this, that like if I go to the gym and I just do curls on my arm like that obsessively, then, you know, I'll have a really nice, well-developed right arm bicep, but nothing else. So when I get to the gym, I work out the whole of my body. So I have a body that works really, really well. And it's the same with my personality and my mind. And the way I get that exercise is from having diverse group of people around me that make me think in different ways about stuff, that make me view the world in a different way. Because I certainly, when I was using, I was in a very much a tunnel vision. And in the end, I was just talking to myself obsessively on my own. And there was nobody else in there. And one of the things I've got from being in the rooms is this capacity to listen to other people, not necessarily agree or disagree, but to allow their personality, who they are as people, to have an influence upon me in the way I grow as a human being. And I've had to learn over the last 15 years how to be with people that I like, that I dislike, that I agree with, that I disagree with. And that's come through, for me, this thing called common purpose. That whenever I've been triggered by people, and I've often been triggered by people in the rooms, I thought about, right, there's something else going on here. And that's something really important to me, which is to stay sober. And there's even something more important than that, that actually that person I dislike also has the right to be sober. They really do. And if I can contribute somehow to helping that person I really dislike maintain their sobriety, then that's okay. Because it's only a meeting. It's only an hour. I'll get over it. I've got loads of other people in my life that are really nice. I can go and sort of offload on them, and they'll agree with me and say they're there. And it's not a big deal. And that's what I've learned, you know. I've got huge amounts from, I'm going to finish soon because I would go on forever. I'm sorry. Really sorry. There's so many gifts I've got from recovery. You know, there's all of you, and I genuinely mean that. You know, you are a super gift to me. But the biggest one, I guess, not the biggest one, the one that's got lots and lots of stuff for me is the capacity to socialize with other human beings just as a human being. Because life, everything in life revolves around being able to be in groups of people. It's just a fact, right? Work, school, families. If you've got kids and you try and bring up your kids on your own, you're done for. The only way you're going to be able to bring up your kids is if you've got lots of other people who are bringing up kids around you. It's a fundamental truth of life that we need groups of people around us. And I just couldn't do that. And I've learned to do that. And it's amazing. It's really amazing. If you're new and you're still obsessed about drink, it'll go. I mean, I never think about drink. It's just irrelevant to my life, and it will go. It's just a biological process. Don't use, do something else, and then it'll stop. That's the way it is. It's no more complicated than that. Sort of simple behavioral, biological reprogramming. And it's got nothing to do with, you can believe in God if you want, I don't care. I just never have done. If that helps, go ahead. If you need a higher power, go ahead, do it. I've never needed one. You know, I don't dismiss it. It's fine, you know. But for me, it's been about these skills I've learned from just being a human being. And I've been going through some tough times recently. People know about, I've been wittering on about it obsessively. And this is my inner child, Matteo, who represents my son that I don't have access to. And Matteo has sent a message to you this morning. He says, would you please keep coming back, because my daddy Noel needs your love and needs you in his life. And I do. I do need you in my life. You're very precious to me, all of you. Thank you. I'll leave it there.